Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Gulf News webinar, Accelerating Cashless, in association with Mashreq. Thank you for your time this morning. I'm your moderator. My name is Noni Edwards. I've been with Gulf News for 6 years, and I've been a resident in Dubai for 12 years. We have an expert panel here with us this morning to share their insights and discuss the transition to a cashless society. So let me introduce our esteemed speakers. We have Mr. Kartik Taneja, Head of Payments at Mashreq Bank. Live long and prosper. We have Mr. Mossam Gadia, Senior Vice President of Finance and Digital Payments at Noon. Good morning. And we have Shahbaz Khan, UAE General Manager of Visa. We're looking very forward to hearing their views. The cashless society is not a new concept. At first glance, the UAE may look to be a long way off, with a large majority of all transactions still being made using cash. However, the pandemic has propelled a shift towards a cashless society in ways that no other single event has. The new dynamics are creating a golden moment for card companies, banks and digital platforms to advance the cashless revolution by encouraging consumers and retailers to use digital payments. One of the biggest shifts in the UAE was in the e-commerce space, cash on delivery customers moving towards online payments. What dynamics are at play here in a post-COVID world? What is the future of cashless payments? Let's start by asking our panelists. Mr. Kartik, is cash still king in the region?
I think cash is certainly important, and I think it will remain important for some more time. In my view, I'm not certain at this point whether cash will really die, right? I think there are use cases for that where, you would always find need for some cash to remain within the society, because there are always segments that would not be part of the digital revolution, and they would not have access to those kind of tools. And I think till we reach that stage, cash is certainly going to remain in the society. But over time, of course, the importance of cash is coming down. In fact, today, I would say probably, give or take half of the transactions are happening in cash. And I think that number is going to go down. Yes, you're right. The pandemic has given a fillip to, I would say e-commerce in particular, but also, payment methods like contactless as well. But I would say that there is a little bit of a denominator effect which is happening. So if you had $100 or 100 dirham of transactions which were happening pre-COVID, and out of that 20 were on e-commerce, let's say roughly, right? So what's happened is that during the pandemic, what we've seen is that the 80 which were happening face-to-face or on point of sale, POS, essentially crashed to 15 and or 20, and the e-commerce bit went up to 30, and that's what's really happened. So a lot of people who are making headlines just based on the percentages are kind of missing the point that this wasn't just one thing which really but it's also the fact that everything around just crashed.
Thank you very much. Your views from Visa's perspective?
I was on mute.
Shahbaz, you're on mute.
Webinar error 101. Anyway, here we go. So let's look. I think not so much. I don't think cash is king. It hasn't been in the UAE for a while now. Even before the pandemic, the UAE was making a rapid progress to become cashless. We've got a young population. There is a huge adoption of smartphone penetration. So we've been typically early adopters for all new forms of payments, right? So, and also on top of it all, I think the government policies and initiatives have been really supportive of going cashless. So all of this was already propelling UAE towards being cashless, right? But the pandemic obviously has accelerated that shift. We did a study recently to track the impact of COVID in the UAE and more broadly in the region. And what we found is that our COVID impact tracker found that 80% of the consumers in the UAE have actually changed their shopping behavior. They have also changed their payment behavior. And the encouraging news for us is that a lot of them actually intend to stick to those habits post-COVID as well. You will see that nearly 2/3 of the people that we researched in the UAE and Saudi have said that they've started shopping online for the first time. Obviously, when you shop online, you're more conducive to pay with card and go cashless. Karthik talked about contactless. I think this is again a movement that's been happening in the region for a while. We see in the UAE more than 50% of transactions that happen face to face are actually on contactless. And that numbers that keeps going up constantly. So I don't think cash is king. Gladly for us, and I think that the pandemic has really accelerated the move towards cashless. There are pockets of stubborn cash that remain, as Karthik alluded to, and I think there are ways we can go after it, which we can talk about as we progress. Yeah.
Thank you for that. You mentioned that the move to online shopping is obviously prompting cashless transactions. Mr. Mossam, can you give us your perspective? Is cash still king for Noon?
Actually, what has happened is over a period of time, especially before pandemic, we used to anyways promote a lot of contactless way of payment at the time of delivery and also online. But because of pandemic, the whole journey has accelerated a lot. We have also seen data that a lot of customers are actually preferring to go contactless. In fact, one of the studies we were also reading says that the contactless payments year over year have actually grown by more than 100%. And a lot of customers are actually now preferring to pay. They are pay online, and they are getting a lot more comfortable around, trusting the platforms. And I think in the beginning, cash on delivery became a method that, customers are not trusting the platform. They may not know who the platform is, can they trust. But with time and a multiple sort of transactions, and now that the loyalty is getting developed, we feel people are a lot more confident. In fact, our card on file, which is the amount of cards that people are actually saving on the platform, are growing through the roof month over month. And that is really a sign of people trusting the platform. And we believe that for us, cash was just a method to build trust, but we really don't want to rely on cash as a predominant method. And we have seen a steady increase in adoption of prepaid methods. And in partnership with multiple players, we are even further innovating on how we can provide plethora of contactless and cashless options to the customers for shopping online. And even if they wish to pay on delivery, because they want to see the product and make sure that they get the delivery. So absolutely, I concur with what Shahbaz said. We are not really seeing cash being the king for us anymore. And we are actively pursuing strategies and technology investment as known to make sure that we move away from reliance on cash as much as possible. Also, what happens in our kind of operations is there's a lot of risk that cash brings to our operations. Our people's lives are at risk because they're carrying hundreds of thousands of dirhams of cash, and we actually discourage the behavior from the customer experience perspective as well, and try to shift them online. And I think COVID has actually accelerated that journey for us by a lot of percentage points, and we see that the baseline shift has happened. So we do not see the cash on delivery customers. A lot of them will go back to cash anymore because the trust is there. And as I said, there are a lot of cards that are getting saved online on our platform, and we believe that should continue to help customers buy more and more online.
Yeah, I agree with
That's
you.
really interesting that you make the point about safety, because we're all seeing that cash is less safe for us now in COVID times. But you're saying that for your delivery drivers who were carrying cash, it's always been a safety risk. I'll just stop there for one moment. Before we continue, I'd like to raise a couple of housekeeping points for our spectators. If you'd like to ask a question during the webinar, please use the questions box down the bottom of your screen there. We also have a chat box there at the bottom of the screen. If you'd like to make any comments, you can make the comments there. But if you have a question that you'd like to ask our panelists, please put it in that questions section there. And also we have a poll running. We'll have several polls running throughout this session. We have one running that's our first one. In a society that relies heavily on cash payments, will cashless be widely accepted? We have 87% of people saying yes and 13% of people saying no. So we'll check back in on that poll and the others in just a moment. All right, let's continue on with our questions now for our panelists. Let me start this time with Mr. Shahbaz. At first glance, the UAE looked to be a long way off, with up to 75% or maybe 55 or 60% of all transactions still being made using cash prior to the pandemic. What are the shifting consumer behaviours that you're seeing as a result of COVID-19?
So I think, Noni, we're seeing two very distinct shifts in behaviors, right? So I think the pandemic obviously has impacted us all in a big way. Lots of habits are going to change. And I think the two that are most important to us at Visa are we're seeing a huge shift in the way consumers shop. So not only just what they're buying, but how they're buying, and also how they're paying for their purchases, right? So in my opening remarks, I talked about a couple of statistics. So people are becoming more and more aware of touching things, and I never thought that in my time at Visa I would ever have a tagline to say that cash is not safe, apart from the rider safety that Mossam talked about. But cash is not hygienic. I mean, I never thought that would be a tagline that we would ever I would see in a newspaper. But so I think people are getting very conscious about making touchless, having touchless experiences, right? So I know platforms like Noon and food deliveries have adapted to it. You can almost, whenever you do online shopping, you can have a complete touchless experience. If you've paid by card, you can instruct the driver to leave your goods at door. So that's becoming really important. So the two key elements, the two key change of behaviors we're seeing is obviously at point of sale. When you're face-to-face at a retailer, consumers are choosing to make touchless payments, contactless payments. This was on even before the pandemic, but now I think we see, for example, in the UAE, more than 50% of those payments are contactless. In Saudi, more than 80% of those payments are contactless. So we are really going, at least in a face-to-face environment, towards cashless in a big way. And there's a huge shift I think we've seen in e-commerce, right? So nearly 90% of merchants were online before the pandemic, but the remaining 10% have now, set up their footprints online. And I think that's been a big differentiator for a lot of retailers. And I think that's another behavior shift that we've seen. People are choosing to go online, shopping online. There is a build of trust, as Mossam talked about. After you've transacted once, you tend to come back. So I think those are the two key behaviors that we're seeing a huge shift towards as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's interesting. You made an early point there about cash being not hygienic. We've been seeing people going to extraordinary lengths trying to sanitize their cash, putting it in the microwave. I mean, that's dangerous as well.
Try that with an Australian dollar.
So. Well, we all know that Australians are very far advanced with cashless payments, don't we? Okay, let's carry on. All right, Mr. Kartik, can you tell us from Mashreq's point of view, do you think consumer behavioural changes due to the pandemic, such as shifting online and increasing digital payments, are they likely to continue post-COVID-19? Have they lost trust for cash? Have they gained trust for cashless? Oh, we don't have Mr. Kartik there. I'll ask Mr. Mossam that same question then. Do you think that the habits that people have developed now, Kartik, I'm just going to ask Mr. Mossam that question now. We just lost you. What do you think, Mossam?
Yeah, see, I actually believe that the shift is actually going to remain, and it's equally important for a platform like us to keep innovating for the customer needs, right? So we have been, during pandemic, one of the most active times of our history known, that we actually have launched more than 2 or 3 new platforms, and all of them went live during pandemic to meet the new customer needs. ability to buy grocery online in a very seamless way, getting the stuff delivered next day. I think those things were the real consumer needs, and the team at Noon worked hard to get it delivered and make sure that we are there for the customer needs. And I believe that with such kind of innovation coming on ground, almost in a jiffy, has actually helped consumers to try to shift their purchasing behavior more and more online. So I think that trend is going to continue. We will see a lot more people adapting to buy online and continuously try newer ways, to engage with various kind of products and services. I think one thing that we must also understand is it's not only that consumers were buying products online, e-commerce. I think e-commerce services, the services that consumers are buying or were buying pre-pandemic are also going through a transformational change as we speak, and we believe that by innovating on helping consumers consume stuff in a completely digital way is also going to be a big game changer as we go ahead. Ability to buy with a click. You want to buy a subscription, you want to buy an air ticket, you want to buy a movie ticket. I think those things will continue to see a dramatic shift, and I would assume a huge proportion of those transactions will continue to go online. But yes, to make sure that the consumer behavior stays the way we want it to be, which is less cash and of course with almost zero contact, I think it's a responsibility and duty of us as an e-commerce player to keep innovating in that space, and we have been doing a lot of it over the last 3 to 4 months, and you will see a lot more coming out in near future.
Yeah, I have to say, I have to give thanks from a consumer point of view here, because the speed, the in a jiffy, the momentary nature of you being able to pivot with online platforms and provide us with things that were no longer just for convenience, but for necessity. We weren't able to get out and buy our necessary goods. And, for your platform and others to be able to deliver these to us, on the turn of a pin was, life-saving for many people. So thank you very much. All right, we have our second poll up here. Has the pandemic resulted in you spending more on e-commerce platforms and using digital payments? 94% of respondents say yes. Only 6% of people have not been spending more on e-commerce and using digital payments. There we go. All right. So let's continue on to our questions. Let's ask this one to Mr. Kartik now from Mashreq. How has the coronavirus pandemic reshaped e-commerce in the UAE and wider region?
Okay, so I think easily talk about the UAE. As I said in my sort of opening remarks, I think what has happened is that the e-commerce sector as a whole has really gone up because there was really no other way to do it. Obviously, we also saw increases in, kind of daily necessities, some kind of, a little bit of hoarding also was seen sometime in March, April. So in fact, groceries as a category for us went up almost 500% year on year. But e-commerce, we are the leader in that space, and so we have a high base that we started off from. So while year on year it's gone up like 100%, I think for us that increase was already off a pretty high base. And what I see is like there are 3 stages. I think people have alluded to it. Like in marketing, you learned about the 3 Ps, right? Product, placement, and something else with a P, and price actually. And now it's about the 3 Ts, right? So it's technology, it's trial, and then it's trust, right? So the tech has been there. The trial is the area which has really exploded during this time, where a lot of people didn't have a choice but to try out e-commerce. And we've seen users who weren't using e-commerce before. Clearly, I think that trend is visible to us here. I think trust is a little bit longer term. Although I have no doubt, I have zero doubt that this is a trend that is not coming down. It's only going to go up from here. But I think trust over time is going to be a function of, the kind of experience people have with these platforms and in these payment methods of how good are we able to make the customer experience. And that depends on the user experience of our applications. Like, for example, we pay a lot of attention to how our online banking and mobile banking looks like. and how easy can we make it for customers to make a payment. And I can, if you'll allow me, I'll give you one example, right? And this is the things that Visa is doing along with us, which is having a new level of security which has been launched into this market, which is called 3D Secure version 2. And with this, the kind of security which is happening at the back end, right? The kind of data that we are getting about a transaction that is coming to us to approve or not, right? There are now more than 200 fields that will come to us. And that allows us to be more confident and therefore approve a lot more transactions than what we were doing in the past, right? And that's a customer experience which is far superior. We think that we will be able to maybe approve, if our calculation is right, more than 1 million more transactions than we were doing in the past. So I think that's the kind of tech that is enabling the customer experience that the user experience is also leading to.
Thanks very much for that, Kartik Taneja. Okay, here's another one for Visa, for Shahbaz. Okay, we talk about the technology, we talk about the infrastructure. Shifting businesses online requires significant investment from brick and mortar retailers facing a cash crunch. What can banks, payment providers, and e-commerce firms do to support their digital transformation? Sorry, Shahbaz, you're on mute.
Better now?
Yes.
Okay. So look, I think businesses, all kinds of businesses have seen a really tough time during the pandemic, right? And there has been this increased push, urgency towards digital, and every business that wants to grow in the future, even post-pandemic, has to really pay attention to that message. I think when I'm going to refer back to our research that we did during the COVID period. What we've seen is that the cash-only merchants, both across the UAE, Saudi, have struggled the most and have been most negatively impacted during the crisis. So, just to quote you some numbers, so 58% of cash-only merchants in Saudi and nearly 50% of these merchants in the UAE have experienced a significant drop in revenues during the pandemic. In the UAE, there were a lot of businesses, obviously, who had an online footprint in some way, shape, or form, but the remaining 10% have now, expressed an interest to get online, and I think a lot of them have pivoted, as you said. Noon being one of them. I think they were, into the sort of the Noon Daily was a quick pivot to make sure that they're able to be the providers for sustenance for a lot of families in the UAE and Saudi. So there is a huge digital transformation wave that's going through. And I think we need to think through long term, even post COVID. I think this is going to be an important step for any business to consider. So I think from our perspective, so Visa has made a commitment globally to support 50 million small to medium businesses worldwide that have been negatively impacted because of the COVID-19 situation. We're running a whole range of programs to help the small to medium businesses to accept digital payments, to get them enable their websites for e-commerce, to digitally transform their back office operations, and also to meet the increasing consumer demand for cashless, right? At the regional level, there is two specific things that we've done. So we've introduced a regional campaign called Where You Shop Matters, where we're trying to encourage consumers to essentially buy local and support local businesses. We have also created what we call a small business hub, because getting online for smaller businesses can be a daunting task. I think there is lots of help that's available. So we've created what the small business hub that I'm talking about. It offers information, it offers toolkits, it offers resources for smaller businesses that want to get online and enable e-commerce on their footprint. Another thing that we've done, again, in fact, in conjunction with Noon, is there was a period of time where, in fact, and I thought it was a bold move, where Noon had actually removed cash on delivery, which is a brave move. And at that point in time, Visa and Noon had collaborated for first-time shoppers to get a discount if they paid by card. So that was a consumer adoption. It was basically just to encourage them to get into that behavior. So there are lots of things that we've done in collaboration with our partners, and we'll continue to do so because I think this is here to stay.
Thank you for that. Yes, it's really interesting to hear about the programs that you're putting in place to support local business and small business. It was just yesterday, wasn't it, that Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry established a restaurant business support group so that, at every level of society, we're looking to help and support the businesses around us. So long may that continue and help the industries out. Okay, so Mr. Mossam, let's look at e-commerce here. What role will e-commerce play in helping UAE retailers and businesses emerge from lockdown?
Yeah, I think I must first say that the whole purpose of building Noon as a platform was actually to help local sellers, retailers, wholesalers, distributors to actually go online. We have been seeing a continuous shift in the consumer behavior, and that's only accelerated by pandemic. For us to people to shop online and find a lot more products available online. So as the pandemic started, and then we had lot of queries coming out of new sellers who wanted to become partner with Noon, and we have been working on launching various programs across all our platforms that we operate. We operate, of course, the Noon.com and the mobile app of Noon. We launched the grocery business, and we now are accelerating the foray into fashion. Last weekend, I think day before yesterday, Mr. Labar also announced that Noon would actually get into food delivery because we want to support the local restaurants and probably help them protect the business and margins by giving them a very differentiated and a low-cost service versus what is being offered in the market today. So I think we at Noon are taking multiple level initiatives to support the SMEs. We are also, we run a payment gateway internally, and we are offering a huge amount of discount and one-time sort of savings for SMEs who sign up for it. And eventually all of this happens in the partnership with the ecosystem, right? Like, of course, we build what we build, but working with Visa, working with Mashreq Bank and many other partners that we have in the ecosystem, we've been able to really bring value to our sellers, both in terms of showcasing their products, helping them go online quite quickly. It's a completely touchless process. So today, there's no physical interaction that one needs to do to become an online seller at Noon. And we provide the end-to-end service, right? We pick up the products from the seller's place, put it into our warehouse, and then we ship it to the customer at the fastest speed possible. So the program that we run, which is called Fulfilled by Noon, which is when you shop on Noon, you see something badged as Express, is actually a program that was meant to accelerate both on the customer side, adoption of online commerce, but also help the sellers to really showcase their products in a more prominent way and have a much higher chance of conversion. And I think that has only accelerated with COVID. We have been actually, struggling to manage space. We are growing out of space. When we build something for some amount of time, it just keeps running out because there's just so much demand from the SMEs already to use the platforms like us. And of course, we support them in all the ways possible, helping them manage their catalog, their content, the pricing. So all of that market development has actually been part of what we have been doing, and we have only doubled down on that effort over the last few months or quarters, I must say. So that's what we as e-commerce are playing our role. And of course, as Shahbaz said, we partnered with likes of Visa to make sure that we give back to the customers during this period and help them transition a lot more smoothly.
That's really interesting, the point you're making about providing the marketplace, the virtual marketplace for local providers. I guess in so many areas of our life now, we're trying to find a new sense of community in a less contact world. So yeah, that's interesting. The business community, the small business community that you're all helping to foster there. We have another poll running. Given the likelihood that buying products online will only increase with time, has the transition so far been smooth? An astounding 87% says yes, the transition has been smooth. Well, that is comforting as well, given that so many things about the pandemic have not been smooth. They've been very, very jolting, very jarring for us. So yes, 88% of people believe that the transition has been smooth so far. All right, let's ask Kartik a question for Visa. With the rise of contactless payments, what is the future in terms of new payment technologies that are likely to take off? Can you give us a glimpse into the future and tell us what is on our horizon?
Sure, I'm happy to take that. Although Shabazz is from Visa, I'm from Mashreq. So
sorry.
But I'm happy to give you
Let's
at least
ask both of you so we're not playing favorites there.
Yes.
Kartik.
I think I just want to take a second and say, while I think Visa and Noon are doing a lot of work on the merchant community, I have been looking at, or Mashreq has been looking at supporting the customers, the clients that who actually shop there. In addition to the fact that we are the payment provider for Noon as it stands currently, right? So we partner with Noon, but also a number of our SME customers have gone online. But we were one of the first banks, if not the first bank, I think, who came out with a plan for all the people during this pandemic who were affected by COVID directly or indirectly. And I think we had the biggest and probably the most generous program that we had in the market, where we had several, 2 or 3 months of either interest-free or a reduced interest payment holiday that we had given to our customers. And I think all of that helps because it allows people to keep going and, get their necessities and just hang in there, because in times like these, sometimes just that is important. But moving on to the future and what's probably coming down the tube, I think that there is a wave of new payment methods, right? And I think that started in the West, and I think it's not reached the peak here yet. And I think there is more innovation to be done in that space. And the battleground on that is going to be, how do we have new payment methods that either target a particular segment or work on a particular use case, and say, how do we be the best at that? How do we make sure that this is the best experience a customer can have, right? And so whether it's QR code, I mean, QR code is just a tech, but it allows us to serve a lot more clients that we wouldn't have been able to serve earlier, because it's a lot cheaper to get it done. So it opens up a new segment of customers. And QR code, I mean, if you've been to China, everywhere you just see QR codes. India is rapidly becoming the same. I'm not certain UAE or Dubai in particular will follow the same route, but I think that tech is here to stay. In the maybe medium term, we might even see biometric-led, cardless payments. A lot of digital payments that we talk about are running on card rails, but tomorrow it could be just blinking your eyes to pay, or smile to pay, as Alipay trialed. I don't think it's gone anywhere, but there are biometric methods that I don't think are out of the question in, let's say, the 5-year time horizon.
I'm quite a smiley person, especially when the people around me are cracking jokes. I think I might need to keep my mask on if I'm going to be spending money every time I crack a smile.
Maybe you'll get paid.
Maybe I'll get paid. Yeah. Well, that's something else entirely. Thank you. That was really interesting. Shabazz, can you tell us from Visa's point of view about the new technologies that might be coming online in the future?
Yeah, so I think Karthik's referred to a couple of them. We've talked about contactless, we've talked about e-commerce and card on file. I think another one that I believe the time's right in the UAE, and if you refer to earlier part of the conversation, we talked about stubborn pockets of cash, and Karthik said it's cash is not king, but it still remains important. I think technology that will really help target those stubborn pockets of cash is P2P, right? So a lot of the bigger markets, bigger economies have enabled person-to-person payments. I think we should be able to enable those in the UAE. I think the technology exists. We use it for cross-border remittances. I think we should be able to use it for local payments within the UAE as well. So I think that's an important payment mechanism that should be introduced, and I think we're working very closely with the central bank to sort of talk about that. As in, another couple of things that sort of really sort of sits on the back is really not top of mind when it comes to consumers, but I think really gaining traction One is, and Karthik alluded to a little bit of that earlier on, is security, right? So when all of these payments are shifting online, obviously the fraudsters are also shifting online. So how do we keep payments secure? So 3DS 2.0 that Karthik talked about, we keep continuously innovating on how to make payments secure, how to build trust, and how to keep consumers safe online. So I think that's one area where there is going to be a lot of innovation that continues to be. It has been traditionally as well. And I think the last one that I would sort of want to talk about is analytics, right? So unlike cash, and this is an advantage of digital payment, is that it creates there is a footprint for the payment. And while there are consumers sometimes get a little bit nervous about privacy, but the good side of it is that players like Noon, players like Visa, and Mashreq are able to adapt to consumer, understand the trends, adapt payment methods, services to meet those consumer needs, and I think that's really powerful. If you are given a solution that is customized to you, I think that's really powerful, and I think the advances in data go a long way, and I think that's another area there's a lot of work happening globally.
Thank you for that, Shahbaz. We have another poll running here. It is speed, convenience, and limited human contact are the main reasons cited for an increased preference for digital payments. How important is the security of payment technology for you, as we were just talking about? 99% say very important. And one lone holdout, one person has voted not that important. I'd like to know that one person's reasons for security of payment technology not being important. Okay, let's move on. Let's stay with that. Fraudsters are seeking to take advantage of people spending more time online. How can stakeholders address security concerns? That might be one that all of you might like to. Mossam, can you tell me briefly from Noon's point of view, how is Noon addressing fraudsters?
Yeah, so we have actually addressed fraud at multiple levels. We work closely with the solutions that are provided by a couple of our partners, including Visa, who help us actually screen the transaction on the fly. So if we see somebody acting, in a malicious way, try to game the system, try to do fraud transactions, we obviously block them, and they are not even taken to the next level. We also, because we gather a lot of data as customers are shopping about the IP, about multiple kind of data points, the purchasing history, etc. I think we know with lot of sort of experience in handling this data is whether a specific transaction is actually going to be a potential fraud. So what we have done is over a period of time, we have invested a lot in sort of pre-transaction frauds across the levels during our customer journey, the operations, the checkout process, and all of that. I think once the transaction is completed, we also have certain rules where we actually go and measure the transactions. We see if there are any kind of levers that we can catch before the actual delivery is happening. And sometimes customers whose cards are fraudulently used because of multiple issues, it can be a friendly fraud. It can be a fraud where customer has actually compromised their card details and somebody is trying to take advantage of it. So obviously we do all of these checks both in terms of pre-transaction process as the customer money is going to get charged, and also after the transaction has been completed. So we have invested in a lot of technologies, both in-house and using our third-party capabilities. And I'm really sort of proud of the numbers that we see in terms of what in industry terms we call as chargebacks, where customers are actually raising claims of a fraudulent transaction. And one of the metrics that we closely monitor is actually how much those chargebacks are. And we at Noon actually have seen almost like a 0.00 some percentage of that number, which is better than the gold standards I have personally seen in many other places across the world. So obviously, maintaining the user security, the payment gateway we use is actually a PCI DSS compliant, which is one of the leading security standards in the payment industry, and we have been successfully achieving the higher levels of security as we are getting into those certifications every year. So obviously we have invested a lot in keeping customer data secure, keeping the transaction information secure. All our pipes and connections are properly encrypted. We don't have data available to our merchants even about what the customer data is. Like we take it very seriously. And what we also do is actually across our networks and even the internal teams, they can't access the personal information. So all of that is completely encrypted. So that enables a lot of security internally, and we invest into an in-house security team who continuously checks our technology. They do penetration testing, they do vulnerability assessments of all our stack to make sure that the stuff that is being used on a day-to-day basis by consumers is running with a watertight security. Recently we heard about Garmin and what happened to them. It's really, really astonishing to see a large organization like that being held by ransom, by cyber attacks, and we take all of this really seriously. This region is prone to attacks. We have seen that in the past, and this is something that is top of our mind across the board as management at Noon. And as I said, we have invested at multiple fronts.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Masam. Kartik, can you explain for me, I guess on a psychological level, these are the pockets, the stubborn pockets of cash that we're seeing. They've obviously, the phrase that comes to mind with the pandemic is that push has come to shove, that they have had to adopt cashless. How do you reassure them? How do you deal with them, on a psychological level to offer that kind of reassurance to them, when they must admit that they must not use cash anymore? But how do you deal with the psychology of it?
I think that's a tough question. It's a great question. I believe that fraud prevention is a team sport. I don't think it's just something we do alone. And I think we partner with Visa, we partner with MasterCard, American Express, we partner with our merchant partners like Noon and many others to firstly make sure that there are standards that are put in place that allow for customers to feel comfortable that if something were to happen, that they are protected, right? The second part of that is to communicate that. And I don't think we have done that great a job. I think there are standards in place already which should reassure customers that if they're shopping online, they are safe and they're protected. I think we have done a less good job of communicating that effectively. And I think that's something that I am asking my team to at least work closely with Visa. I know they have had programs for years around that, and maybe it's time to refresh some of that. And the third piece is actually making, if something were to happen, making that experience really, quick, painless, and people see that even if something happened, we were able to deal with it effectively and efficiently. And those are pieces where I think the tech part, the digital technology that we have to interact with, let's say if somebody got defrauded at Noon, somebody used someone else's ID, right? That we are able to talk to Noon instantly, and we are able to talk to Visa instantly and make sure that, the case is resolved as quickly as possible with the minimum documentation. So I think that's an area of focus for us. I think the standards and platforms exist, and we just need to make sure that we are working that asset harder.
Thank you for that. It's time now to move to our our audience questions, because frankly, they're a lot more interesting than the ones that I have. Let's go to Irfan. Irfan has asked, for small business, how convenient is it to move to cashless? Are there heavy charges of payment gateways plus commissions? And is the market working on less margin? Let's ask Shabazz from Visa.
So I think the market's very competitive, right? So I think small businesses looking to enable digital payments, there are lots of options to choose from. Mashreq is a very large provider, obviously, and it's a very competitive. So I don't think the margins are that high, and especially when you compare it to loss of business in situations like these, right? So I think that's a manageable cost of doing business. It keeps coming down. I have seen over the last 2-3 years, cost of acceptance have come down. Kartik alluded to QR codes. That's a relatively inexpensive way of accepting payments as well. So even that technology is available in the UAE. So I think the notion of cost of acceptance being too high is that actually of historic nature. I don't think that's reality today, to be honest. And I don't know if Karthik wants to add anything to that, but that's my view.
Yeah, Shahbaz, I would love to. So I would just add one thing, which is that it has never been easier to start accepting payments, especially digital payments, as it is today. And you're right in saying margins have been just consistently coming down over the last 3 years in this market. Now the question is what is fair and what is relevant. I think it's a competitive market, and the market determines what what the market will bear, right? In that sense. But what I can say is it's never been easier and it's never been cheaper.
Thank you both for that. One on e-commerce for Mossam. Amit asks, it's evident that e-commerce has gained from this pandemic. However, in the long run, people will want to go out to brick and mortar stores. What would be the long-term measures to continue keeping customers engaged on e-commerce?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing question, and I think this is something that keeps us awake every day, every night. Like, how can we keep getting more and more to the consumers with respect to what they're wanting to buy online, whether it is their daily needs, whether it is something that they need in real time, whether they need something which is a planned purchase, an expensive item. So I think we have been working tirelessly on bringing these services over the last few months, and as I said, we are aggressively working towards getting our grocery service expand to other geographies. It's already live in UAE across most of the Emirates, covering a large part of population and gaining a huge traction already, with a very high rate of customer satisfaction in both in terms of the speed and the quality of the service. So I do agree that, of course, going out and shopping was been a always trend, and people visiting malls for shopping for their daily needs or whether the planned purchases will continue to stay. It's not going away anytime soon. But what I would always say, and I believe that the function of e-commerce growth is actually selection and price. Those are the two pillars, along with an amazing service. And we at Noon have been working tirelessly to increase the selection of the customers so that you literally get what you want in no matter of time. And we have recently launched, a new service which is a hyper-local delivery. It's called Now. In fact, I was wearing that mask today. And this service is actually, it's quite unique. We have partnered with a lot of small and large chains and help customers to get their stuff instantly delivered. So I personally use that service 2 times a day to just, shop anything that my wife needs, and it just shows up in less than an hour. And that's amazing. So yes, there will be a need for customers to go. Maybe not everything will be available online that a customer needs, but I do believe that by innovating on multiple ways of customer needs, like building a grocery service, building an instant delivery service, building, of course, a core sort of large plethora of a selection on the e-commerce, whether it is electronics, fashion, your home needs, your baby needs. I think that direction is continuously sort of getting accelerated, and as consumers are becoming a lot more savvy with shopping online using digital means and actually trusting the platforms, I think the need to go out is continuously going to diminish. And with a lot more innovation happening around even the technology. For example, in India, there are companies that actually allow you to try your clothes digitally. You can just pick up the clothes, put your photo, or put the shoes down on your own feed using AR, right? And these things are gaining traction, and I believe as more and more innovation happens around how customers can shop online, the need to go physically and buy something will actually keep reducing. And that's a duty and responsibility of us as a platform.
Thank you very much. We're coming towards the end of the session now, but we still have quite a few spectator questions to get through. If I might, I'll try and ask a few of them. Could we keep these last few answers quite tight so we can get through as many as possible? All right. So let us go to Marcus's question. I think I'll ask this one to Karthik, please, from Mashreq. What do you think are the main gaps and challenges for the UAE to become a cashless society, let's say compared to Sweden, which is one of the leading countries, he says?
I think we need some improvement on the universal ID. We have a form of that. I think it needs a little bit of enhancement to be able to reach everyone, instantly digitally. The second piece is some enabling regulations, which I think we work with our regulators quite a lot, and I think those are on their way. And the third piece is I think sometimes just allowing or having a platform for banks to create new kind of products. So in Sweden, for example, one of the products you're talking about allows you all banks to have a QR code based P2P, P2M kind of solution where all banks participate. And I think that will take a little bit of time. So these three things.
Thank you. Shabazz, we have a question here for Visa. Is Visa doing anything currently to raise customers' awareness on fraud and new cybercrime threats targeting online shoppers? If yes, any examples? Says Hassam.
So yeah, absolutely. So I think we go to market. So a couple of things. The first one is we work very closely with the regulator, the Central Bank of the UAE. We have worked very closely with them on the what we call the Stay Secure campaign. So these are basically a set of regulations that keep consumers safe when they are either shopping face to face or online. We also collaborate very closely with our partners. So typically, Visa is a B2B company. People like Karthik and Mosama are our clients. So we actually work with them to go to market with a lot of these campaigns. So a lot of the customer awareness campaigns. We also conduct a lot of merchant training campaigns as well, where we train merchants on how to deal with payments in store. So these are a whole bunch of things that Visa has invested in to make sure that consumers remain safe either face to face or online when they're using electronic payments.
Thanks, Shabazz. We have a question here from Rakim for Mashreq. He says, Mashreq has done a great job in bringing digital in my comfort zone by providing Apple Pay. This has become my default way of paying. Where I do feel is a gap is the loyalty part. Can Mashreq play a role there, I guess, in bridging the gap with Apple Pay?
I'm not certain I understand the question, but let me try to decode that. I think if loyalty can be done instantly like Apple Pay payments are being done, I think that is an area which requires technology investment. That investment is something that we are actually doing. So probably if all goes well by the end of this year, we should have a reward platform which is as instant as what you see in Apple Pay.
Oh, I think we just got a hint there. And I think we'll make this the final question. From Siva, what is the strategy for Mashreq and Visa with regards to trials in fintech innovation, develop in-house or partner with startups? So yes, I'll ask Shabazz first. What is the strategy for Mashreq and Visa with regards to trials in fintech innovation?
So Visa is really, we've been at the forefront with partnering with fintechs in the region. I think we've realized quite early on that we don't want to be building everything. I think if there is good technology available, there are lots of promising fintechs in the region. I think the region has been a hub for fintechs for a long time now. So we partner quite extensively with a lot of fintechs in the region to bring new experiences, new technology. Our recent partnership that we announced with Kareem Pay is an example of that. We also collaboratively work with Mashreq on some of these fintech partnerships. We introduced a global program, which is also live in this region. It's called the FinTech Fast Track Program, which is any fintech that wants to work with Visa has got a accelerated way to do so. So that's our flagship program we run here. And we're really open to working with fintechs in the region.
And yes, the other side to that coin?
I don't think it's the other side at all. I think it's a one-sided coin. So
in our cashless society,
I would say that Mashreq today partners with at least 24 startups already, who are our partners in different processes, because our belief is that we don't hold IP rights to all the good ideas in the world. And whether it's, partnering, whether it's, revenue share, whether it's, renting a platform, we are open to all these kind of ideas. And at this point of time, I can tell you, I'm personally involved with dozens of conversations with startups where we're evaluating different levels from investment to a simple buyout kind of situation. Sorry, I don't mean buying out the fintech, but buying the technology.
I think this is one that indirectly I'm going to ask to Mossam. We have a question from Danny here. If I go to a local street vendor, he doesn't have a credit card, debit card payment machine. He will insist on cash payment. What is the solution to make this street vendor have access to cashless without a credit card machine? I think that Mossam can.
Yeah, I think I would say that Karthik already answered that question earlier with a lot of details, and I believe we need to bring out newer solutions to the country. The traditional POS machines, hardware systems are not something that everybody can adapt to, and China and India have shown the way. There is a way possible that you don't need a hardware to accept payments. A simple printout on a A4 sheet with a QR code is good enough for you to accept payments, and I think. For those kind of use cases, this is a brilliant fit that can really work to enable such kind of merchants to accept payments on, digitally without cash. And of course, Shahbaz touched upon P2P payments. I think with the regulations getting in place and hopefully coming out very soon, I think there is a way where we can enable the P2P payments, even P2M payments. When I say P2M, is from a purchaser to the merchant. And I think those kind of payment methods will start seeing a lot more adoption as we go along. It's already happening in Saudi as we speak. There is a decent amount of traction and a huge amount of regulatory effort that has gone to create the ecosystem or the infrastructure, I should say, to enable such kind of payments. And I think we at Known are aggressively working in that direction to bring such kind of capabilities with, of course, our ecosystem partners. So that people don't have to carry cash anymore. Your mobile device is good enough.
Thank you. Okay, we've got probably time for a last one here. I'll wrap a few questions into one. We're getting a few questions about prepaid cards or virtual cards. Maybe all of you, Shahbaz, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on using virtual debit or credit cards instead of physical ones?
It's a great idea. I think it's already there. It's already live. I think there are, rules in place where you can issue only a virtual card as well. In fact, Karthik and I were talking about it yesterday. So look, I think a lot of the technologies, especially around tokenization, right? So when you get a card and you tokenize it to your Apple Pay or a Samsung Pay wallet, right? That's the virtual card. You don't need to carry the physical card anymore after that. I think there is room to have a virtual only card as well. It's just a matter of, I think it depends on consumer preferences. If consumers are happy to live without a physical card, I'm pretty sure all of us will be happy to issue. It costs money to issue a physical card. So I'll be more than happy for people to carry a virtual card.
Do we still call it a card then if it's not a card?
We call it a credential if you wanted to know the industry term for it. But yeah, that's what it is.
I'm not sure if that one will catch on in consumer land.
I don't think so.
Mossam, can you deal in a world without?
I have been living in that world for quite some time now. Actually, I don't remember when I used my physical card last time. Wherever I go, I just tap the phone and it's done. Of course, I think that's the direction the world is going. The only time I probably use a physical card is to withdraw cash for a payment that has to be made through cash. And I hope those will be addressed by likes of Visa very, very soon. But yeah, I mean, technically for I would say like the whole pandemic, I didn't use my card at all. It was all digital payment, either through mobile device or e-commerce. And thanks to the company I work, they actually addressed a big need, which was grocery.
Fantastic. Can I end the questions here with one that I'm asking of my own here for Karthik? You told us a little story the other day about an example in your life when cash was actually quite useful to you.
Yep.
Do you mind sharing that with us again?
Sure. So and that's why I think cash can never disappear, or at least I hope it doesn't, because in China cash has almost disappeared, or to a much larger extent than here. And I was visiting China, and I was going to a small city called Hangzhou, which is about 100 miles from Shanghai. And I had just flown in, and I was alone, and I was about to catch a high-speed train to Hangzhou from Shanghai terminal. So I reached there, and of course everything is in Chinese. Everything is in Mandarin, and everywhere I go, they only accept digital payments, except the two forms of digital payments they accept are only China UnionPay branded cards and Alipay wallet, right? And neither of these payment methods is available to me. And it so happens that I later found out. So I had to actually literally jump into a taxi and, drive for 6 hours to get there, whereas the high-speed train would have taken an hour to get me there. So not fun, right? It later turns out that there is a counter which accepts cash or one or two counters. But of course, I couldn't figure it out because I don't understand Chinese. Maybe the lesson here is that I should learn Chinese.
That is a high price to pay.
Yeah.
6 hours versus 1 hour. Thank you so much for your time. I'd like to thank all of our panelists today. Kartik Taneja, Head of Payments at Mashreq Bank. Shahbaz Khan, UAE General Manager at Visa. And Mossam Gadia, Senior Vice President of Finance and Digital Payments at Noon. Thank you so much to my team here at Gulf News and to all of you for your time this morning as well. If you'd like to read more about today's topic, we will have a summary article that comes up on Gulf News, either out in your store or on gulfnews.com. Thank you for your time. I'm Noni Edwards for Gulf News. I'll see you again next time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Noni. Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks, Noni.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.